Dollars Before Cents: Why America's Poverty Measures Need a Change by Will Adams and Yashna Naidu.
What do you think of when you think of America? Tall buildings, huge companies, success, money, consumption. Why is it that people hold these ideas of a country in which 15% of the population is in poverty? Is this because of the American dream? The American dream is a dream of social mobility, a dream that anyone could pick themselves up by their bootstraps and make it to the top of the ladder. Essentially, it concerns the ability to rise in class level with hard work. Is the American dream still as realistic as it once was?
People should have the ability to live a dignified life, and it follows that their basic needs must be met. This includes food, clothing, housing, and utilities. Contrary to our current poverty measures, there is more to poverty than material goods and GAP-T or gross annual pre-tax income. Individuals should be able to provide for themselves and their families well enough to function freely in U.S. society.
They must be secure in their living arrangements. This means that people must have the resources, or access to outside resources, to live day to day without having to worry if they can make it to next week, or having to worry about having their water, electricity, or heat cutting off. If a person is living in conditions where they do not have the basic resources to participate in their society and to take advantage of freedoms provided, then they should be considered impoverished. People with special conditions must be accounted for, because even though they may seem to have the same resources under our current measure, healthcare, childcare, and many other day-to-day concerns should play a part in determining a person's level of well-being.
So, let's take a step back. What exactly is poverty? It's a concept frequently discussed over the dinner table or during an early morning session of NPR. But what does it really mean? Poverty is not simply a line or a head count of those above or below a line. We argue that poverty is a state of being marked by a lack of the economic resources needed to provide for one's household the capabilities necessary to live a dignified life, or to provide the capabilities necessary for a life in which a person is financially secure.
The American poor are those who are unable to meet their basic needs and are deprived of both economic resources and the necessary capabilities for a life with dignity. To move further, we'll engage in a brief discussion regarding the terms functionings and capabilities. According to SIN, functionings represent the various things that an individual may do or be in leading a life.
Capabilities, in turn, reflect the alternative combinations of these functionings that an individual can achieve. This type of approach to the American poverty problem is often referred to as the capabilities approach, and suggests that a life well lived, or with dignity in our case, is assessed in terms of capability to achieve valuable functionings. Capabilities have a meaning far beyond the concept of functionings. While it is necessary that people should have valuable functionings, functionings are simply the end of the line, the final achievement. It is more important for people to have capabilities because it allows them free will. Everyone should have similar opportunities to rise in social class or to escape poverty, but not everyone must be forced to actually rise in income. To have a dignified or secure life, people must be given the chances, the capabilities to attain a better life.
People should be able to live a dignified life because even though it does not ensure that a person is happy, fully satisfied, or well off, it does ensure that she is treated fairly as a human being. Someone who is living in conditions so bad that she cannot participate in society, interact with others, or maintain her bodily integrity is surely a person we must consider in poverty. A person must have dignity, and using the term dignity allows the term poverty to encompass an emotional state of a lack of capabilities along with the financial resources that can affect this state. Poverty can also be defined requiring the term security, which provides a more concrete description. To achieve dignity, a person must be in such a state that she can sufficiently provide for herself without the constant worry of falling into enormous debt, falling back into poverty, or even into bankruptcy. If a person is living a lifestyle in which she is living check to check with no insurance, thousands of dollars in credit card debts, and not enough money to pay each month's rent, she is poor. People must have the resources necessary to resist medium income shocks and minor instabilities over a period of 6 months to be considered out of poverty. With this security, people would be allowed to participate fully in society as regular members for an extended period of time. Contrary to the dignity definition, security allows a person safety, a future, and the ability to not just be out of poverty, but to stay out of poverty. If people must be secure to be out of poverty, then it clarifies the line between those in and out of poverty, and disallows much of the constant flow of people in and out of poverty.
At the end of the day, we want to be able to understand how economic income relates to an individual's human capabilities. To do so, we should look deeper into how we evaluate and measure poverty. A scholar named John Iceland suggests that there are two basic types of measures for poverty. One being absolute measures, which define a truly basic or absolute set of needs that are constant over time, and two, relative measures, which deal with a condition of comparative advantage based on shifting or evolving standards of living. When we think about measuring poverty, it is absolutely necessary to take one's capabilities into consideration to put things into adequate context. Consider two separate four-person families, one of which has a female head, Jamie, who has two children under the age of 5. Jamie currently works 2 jobs and 50 hours a week in order to pay for childcare, an hour round trip of daily transportation to work, and her daughter's chronic childhood illness. On the other hand, another family of 4 might live just a short 15 minutes away from work. Both Jack and his wife Amy work part-time at a local food packaging plant and are able to gain free childcare by means of their nearby parents. In line with our nation's current measures, these two households would be seen with no difference in regard to their poverty thresholds.
The current measure we use in the United States may be as old as some of our grandparents, as it was developed in the 1960s. This measure, the official poverty measure, or OPM, is an absolute measure based off of family composition, their gross annual pre-tax income, and the cost of a thrifty food basket. Iceland explains that the threshold is determined by calculating 3 times the economy food plan, the lowest cost food plan prepared and priced by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. As it exists, this measure is outdated as it doesn't adjust for any amount of in-kind benefits, near-cash benefits, or non-discretionary costs. In addition, food now accounts for just 1/6 of a family's total expenditure, while the OPM counts it as a full third.
We must be mindful that standards of living are always changing. Acknowledging that these standards are not stagnant, we must also recognize that poverty is by nature relative. As it stands, the OPM does not show us any characteristics of depth, which would shed light on Americans falling near the line, i.e., at-risk populations, as well as show us how far in poverty a particular household might be. Relative measures help us understand not only the minimum amount of income that an American family needs to get along in their place of living, but also how each family is doing in relation to a given income threshold, giving us a sense of depth for richer analysis.
At the same time, Iceland cautions that relative measures present a moving target for us as they change over time, meaning that we can never really solve relative poverty. That being said, we can use a composite or more comprehensive set of measures. In place of the OPM, we advocate for a more modern measure, the supplemental poverty measure. The SPM's poverty threshold is not simply defined by gap T income. Instead, it functions as a much more thorough tool in that it adjusts for near cash and in-kind benefits, non-discretionary spending, geographical location, and changes in standard of living. These adjustments allow us to see the effects of government assistance on a given household under the poverty threshold, rather than just those tied by blood or marriage.
This measure operates on a 5-year moving average of the 33rd percentile of American household expenditures on food, clothing, shelter, and utilities, or FCSU. This number is multiplied by 1.2 to take care of household expenses for a comfortable but modest living style. Proponents of the current OPM system maintain that it's most easily understood on behalf of its seemingly straightforward and simple nature. These same voices argue against adopting the SPM as a result of its complexity and potential for abuse.
While the SPM is not perfect, it is the best alternative available to us right now. The system is in desperate need of change, and the SPM is a great step in the right direction. It is not possible to have a perfect measure of poverty, but the SPM will provide a level of accuracy in measuring poverty that the OPM could never reach. Along with the more modern enhancements, accounting for government benefits, our measure could measure the depth of poverty, something that would greatly improve our idea of poverty in the United States. If we were to adopt the SPM as our nation's new official measure, we would want to support it with additional relative measures to make for the most comprehensive system within reach. For us, this would mean adding a supplementary threshold of percent of the poverty line. This would entail adding in intervals of increments of 25% under the poverty line to give us a sense of depth in our analysis.
Despite Lyndon B. Johnson's declaration of an unconditional war on poverty in 1964, the number of Americans who still live day to day, unable to meet their basic needs, is staggering. Our Constitution allows American citizens certain inalienable rights and freedoms, and it follows that dignity should be provided for in those rights and freedoms. We all deserve to live our lives dignified and free of shame. Poverty is not a choice. It's not a certain lifestyle that people wish to live. Poverty is not a problem that one person can solve. It requires the time, effort, and contributions of the entire nation to help those who do not have the substantial freedoms to help themselves.
In the time being, we ought to push our leaders to invest more time and resources by way of the SPM to continue to collect data and gain backing in support of the transition. With more comprehensive measures in sight, we will be better equipped to grasp and address the current American poverty problem.